hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. Nolan Mercer wiped sweat from his brow as he surveyed the half-finished kitchen remodel. 15 years of building his renovation business had earned him a reputation as the best contractor in Maple Glen, Michigan. His phone buzzed. Jake's name flashed on the screen. "Dad, you coming home for dinner?" his son asked, his 17-year-old voice cracking slightly. "Should be. Your mom planning something special?" A pause hung between them. She said not to wait up. Another girl's night. Nolan felt that familiar twist in his gut. "Third one this month." "Yeah," Jake said, his tone flat. "Seems like a lot." After hanging up, Nolan packed his tools meticulously, each hammer, saw, and drill returned to its proper place. Order amid chaos, the way he preferred his life. As he drove home through the tree-lined streets of Maple Glen, he couldn't ignore the signs anymore. Renee's restlessness had become a physical presence in their home, like an unwelcome guest that refused to leave. Their two-story colonial came into view, its white trim and navy shutters just as pristine as the day they'd bought it. Inside, the house felt empty despite Jake's presence in the living room. Textbooks spread across the coffee table. "How's the studying going?" Nolan asked, setting his lunch cooler on the counter. Jake shrugged. "Calculus is kicking my butt." Nolan peered over his son's shoulder. Numbers and symbols blurred together, but he recognized the determination in Jake's furrowed brow, the same expression he wore when tackling a difficult woodworking project. "You'll figure it out. You always do." Jake nodded, then glanced toward the stairs. "Mom spent 3 hours getting ready before she left." "That right?" Nolan kept his voice neutral. "New dress, too. The price tag was still on it when she tossed the bag. For $100. Jake didn't look up from his textbook. "That's a lot for hanging out with the bakery ladies." Nolan sank into the armchair across from his son. Jake had always been observant, sometimes uncomfortably so. "Your mom works hard. She deserves nice things." "Sure." Jake finally met his father's eyes. "But she never wore stuff like that when you two went out for your anniversary last month." The comment hung in the air between them. Neither spoke it aloud, but the implication was clear. Something wasn't right. That night, Nolan lay awake until he heard the front door open at 1:17 a.m. He closed his eyes and controlled his breathing as Renee slipped into the bedroom. The scent of unfamiliar cologne drifted toward him, not overpowering, just a trace, but enough. She didn't shower before sliding under the covers, turning her back to him without a word. The next morning, Nolan rose early as usual. 15 years in the construction business had trained his body to wake with the sun. In the kitchen, he found a note from Renee, meeting clients for brunch. "Back later. R." Her handwriting seemed hurried, the letters sharper than her usual flowing script. Nolan made coffee and toast, reviewing the day's work schedule while the house remained quiet. When Jake stumbled downstairs an hour later, Nolan had already mapped out his approach. "Got time to help me with the Wilson project after school?" he asked his son. Jake poured cereal into a bowl. "Sure. What are we doing?" "Installing cabinets. Could use an extra set of hands." Jake nodded, milk dribbling down his chin. "Mom gone again?" "Client meeting." Nolan kept his tone casual. "How'd you do on that calculus problem?" "Figured it out around midnight." Jake's eyes were sharp, analyzing his father. "You okay, Dad?" Nolan met his son's gaze. "Just fine." "Why? You seem different lately." "Quieter. Just thinking about that expansion project. Lot of moving parts." Jake nodded, but his expression said he wasn't convinced. The kid was too smart, too perceptive for his own good. Just like his father. The neighborhood block party arrived with perfect early summer weather. Maple Street closed to traffic as families dragged grills onto driveways and children chased each other with water guns. Nolan manned the grill, flipping burgers with practiced ease while neighbors lined up with paper plates. "Medium rare for me." "Nolan," called Tom Bradford from 3 houses down. "Coming right up," Nolan replied, sliding a perfectly cooked patty onto Tom's waiting bun. From his position, Nolan had a clear view of the entire party. His eyes tracked Renee as she moved through the crowd in her new sundress, stopping to chat with Monica Caldwell. Monica owned the most successful bakery in town, but her tight smile never quite reached her eyes as she spoke with Renee. Derek Caldwell appeared with 2 wine glasses, handing one to his wife and one to Renee. Tall, tanned, and wearing a golf shirt that probably cost more than what most people spend on a week's groceries. Derek had the easy confidence of a man who'd never worried about money. His car dealership, Caldwell Motors, sponsored half the town's Little League teams and had billboards on every major road. Nolan watched as Derek's hand brushed Renee's arm a touch that lingered just a beat too long. Renee laughed, tossing her head back in a way she rarely did at home anymore. Monica's smile grew more brittle as she sipped her wine. "You're burning that one, man." Nolan snapped back to the grill, where Tyrell Mason pointed at a smoking burger. They'd served together in the Army Corps of Engineers before starting civilian life, and now Tyrell was his right-hand man at Mercer Renovations. "Thanks," Nolan said, rescuing the burger. "Got distracted." Tyrell followed Nolan's earlier gaze. "Yeah, I see the distraction. Caldwell's working the crowd again. Guy never stops selling," Nolan replied carefully. "Or buying." Tyrell raised an eyebrow. "Heard he just got Monica another diamond bracelet. Making up for something, if you ask me." Nolan flipped another burger. "Not our business." "True that." Tyrell grabbed a plate. "Jake's coming in hot, by the way." Jake approached with a group of teammates from the high school baseball team, all bottomless pits in need of food. The conversation shifted to sports and school, but Nolan's awareness remained fixed on the trio across the lawn. Derek now stood between the two women, his arm casually draped across the back of Renee's chair, while Monica stared in her wine glass. Later, as the party wound down and neighbors packed up coolers and folding chairs, Nolan found himself face-to-face with Derek Caldwell. "Great burgers, Mercer," Derek said, extending his hand. "You've got the magic touch." Nolan shook it firmly. "Just basic technique. Nothing fancy. Don't sell yourself short. You've built quite the operation from scratch." Derek's smile was perfect, too perfect, capped teeth gleaming in the evening light. "We should grab lunch sometime. I've been thinking about some renovations at the dealership." "Sure thing. Call the office Monday." Nolan's tone was friendly, but his eyes were calculating. "Will do." Derek clapped him on the shoulder. "Your wife was just telling me about your anniversary trip last month. Sounds like you two had a great time." Nolan didn't miss a beat. "Renee always remembers the good parts. She forgets the rainstorm that kept us stuck in the cabin that whole second day." Derek's expression flickered momentarily. "Well, seems like you made the best of it." "Always do." Nolan smiled, teeth clenched behind closed lips. As Derek walked away to join Renee and Monica, Nolan watched the three of them with growing certainty. The evidence wasn't just Renee's new clothes or late nights. It was in how she angled her body toward Derek, how her eyes tracked him across the yard, how Monica's shoulders tensed when they spoke. That night, after the block party ended and neighbors retreated to their homes, Nolan and Renee prepared for bed in silence. The wall between them had been growing for months, but tonight it felt solid and impenetrable. "You seem to enjoy yourself," Nolan commented, pulling back the covers. Renee applied moisturizer to her hands, not meeting his eyes. "It was nice. The Bradford's youngest is heading to college in the fall. Can you believe it? Time flies." Nolan sat on his side of the bed. "You?" And Monica seemed deep in conversation. A slight pause. "Just bakery talk. She's thinking of expanding." "Good for her." Nolan watched his wife's reflection in the dresser mirror. "And Derek has renovation plans for the dealership." Renee's hands stilled for just a moment. "Oh, that should be good for business." "Could be." They finished their bedtime routines without another word about the Caldwells, but Nolan felt the shift in the air between them. 15 years of marriage had taught him to read the silences, and this one spoke volumes. The following Tuesday, Nolan worked late with Tyrell, finishing up the trim work on a bathroom remodel. As they packed up their tools, Tyrell's casual comment landed like a punch. "So Derek Caldwell came into the hardware store yesterday, buying fancy cabinet pulls. Said they were for his home office, but Johnson swears he saw him driving toward your neighborhood after." Tyrell wiped his hands on a rag. "Probably visiting one of his lady friends while the wives are busy. Guy's got a reputation." Nolan's hammer slipped from his grip, clattering against the tile floor. "What reputation is that?" Tyrell looked up, surprised at Nolan's sharp tone. "You know, the way he flirts with everyone's wife. Just talk, probably. He studied Nolan's face. "You all right, man?" "Fine." Nolan retrieved his hammer, placing it carefully in his toolbox. "Just tired. Long day. Tell me about it." Tyrell stretched his back. "My ex is giving me grief about child support again. Women, right? Can't live with them." But Nolan barely heard his friend's complaints. His mind raced, connecting dots he'd been deliberately ignoring. Jake's comments about Renee's new clothes and late nights. The unfamiliar cologne. The way Derek and Renee had stood too close at the block party. Monica's tight, knowing smiles. "Tyrell," he interrupted, "have you heard anything specific about Derek and anyone in the neighborhood?" Tyrell's joking manner vanished. "Nolan, man, I was just running my mouth. You know how people talk. I need to know." Tyrell set down his tools and faced his friend. "There's been talk. Nothing solid. Just, you know how he is with the ladies. And your block has plenty of bored housewives, including mine." Nolan's voice was dangerously quiet. Tyrell looked uncomfortable. "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." They finished loading the truck in silence. As Nolan climbed into the driver's seat, Tyrell grabbed his arm. "What are you going to do?" Nolan turned the key in the ignition. "Get proof." That night, while Renee attended her book club, Nolan installed a small security camera in the living room. He positioned it carefully, disguising it among the family photos on the bookshelf, angled to capture the front entrance and most of the main floor. He told himself it was for home security, a reasonable precaution for anyone. But as he synced the feed to his phone, he knew exactly what he was looking for. For 3 days, nothing happened. The camera captured ordinary domestic scenes. Jake arriving home from school, dropping his backpack by the door despite Nolan's frequent reminders. Renee watering plants, talking on the phone, sorting mail. Normal life. Or the appearance of it. On the 4th day, Nolan checked the feed during his lunch break and felt his blood turn to ice. Renee, dressed in one of her new outfits, opened the front door. Derek Caldwell stepped inside, carrying what looked like takeout bags. They didn't kiss, not immediately, but their body language screamed intimacy as they moved together toward the kitchen, out of the camera's view. Nolan set down his sandwich, appetite gone. He forwarded through the footage, 20 minutes in the kitchen, then upstairs for nearly an hour, then back downstairs, Derek's arm around Renee's waist as they stood in the hallway. This time they did kiss, long and deep, before Derek checked his watch and left. The timestamp showed 2:47 p.m. Derek had visited while Jake was at baseball practice and Nolan was working across town. The careful planning made Nolan's stomach turn. This wasn't a momentary lapse. This was calculated deception, that he closed the app and dialed Tyrell's number. "I need a favor," he said when his friend answered. "And I need you not to ask questions." "You got it," Tyrell replied immediately. "What do you need?" "Information on Derek Caldwell. Business records, financial statements, anything public but not obvious. This about what I think it's about." "Yeah." Tyrell sighed heavily. "I'm sorry, man. You deserve better." "I'm not interested in better," Nolan said, his voice cold and clear. "I'm interested in justice." Nolan sat in his truck outside Monica Caldwell's bakery, watching customers come and go with pink boxes tied with string. The Sweet Maple had become a local institution since Monica opened it 5 years ago. Her French pastry training bringing a touch of sophistication to their small town. He'd waited 3 days since discovering the footage, gathering his thoughts and formulating a plan. When the morning rush died down, he entered the bakery, bell chiming above the door. Monica looked up from behind the glass display case, her professional smile faltering slightly when she recognized him. "Nolan, this is a surprise. What can I get you?" "Coffee black. And a few minutes of your time, if possible." She studied his face, then nodded. "Give me 10 minutes to handle the last customers. You can wait in my office in the back." The small room behind the kitchen smelled of butter and sugar. Framed reviews and business licenses hung on one wall, family photos on another. Derek and Monica stood smiling on a beach, on a ski slope, in front of their house, the perfect couple according to Facebook and the town gossip mill. Monica entered, wiping flour from her hands on her apron. "You're not here for pastries, are you?" "No." Nolan met her gaze directly. "I have evidence that your husband and my wife are having an affair." Monica didn't gasp or cry out. She simply sank into her chair, as if her legs could no longer support her. I see. You don't seem surprised. I'm not. She twisted her wedding ring, a nervous habit. How did you find out? Security camera. In my own home. The bitterness crept into his voice despite his efforts. You already knew? Monica nodded, her expression hardening. For about 3 months. Found hotel receipts, text messages. Derek's not as clever as he thinks. Neither is Renee. Nolan leaned forward. I came here because I thought you deserved to know that I know. And because I have a proposition. I'm listening. I'm filing for divorce. No warnings, no second chances, no marriage counseling. Clean break. Monica's lips curved into a small, sad smile. And you want to know if I'm doing the same? I think they deserve to face the consequences together. Don't you? Same day, same time. Synchronized divorcing. Monica's laugh held no humor. Elegant, in a twisted way. There's more. Nolan pulled a folder from his jacket. Tyrell, my business partner, found some interesting information about your husband's dealership. Financing irregularities, customer complaints filed with the Better Business Bureau, potential tax issues. Nothing definitive yet, but enough threads to pull. Monica took the folder, fingers trembling slightly. You want to ruin him. I want justice. Nolan's voice remained steady. They broke a trust. They damaged lives that didn't belong to them. There should be consequences beyond just losing their marriages. And what's my role in this? Information. Access. You know Derek's routines, his passwords, his vulnerabilities. Together, we can make sure they both lose exactly what they valued most. Monica opened the folder, scanning the contents. Derek would lose everything if this came out. The dealership, the house, exactly. Nolan watched her carefully. The question is, can you do it? Can you be part of bringing him down? Monica closed the folder and met Nolan's eyes. Her expression had transformed, the brittle politeness gone, replaced by something steely and determined. Derek didn't just betray me by sleeping with Renee. He betrayed me by making me doubt myself, by gaslighting me when I questioned late nights and strange charges, by making me feel crazy for suspecting the truth. She pushed the folder back across the desk. Yes, Nolan, I can absolutely be part of bringing him down. Good. Nolan stood. I've already contacted a lawyer. Papers will be ready by Friday. Can you be ready to move by then? Monica nodded. I've had a go bag packed for weeks. Just been waiting for the right moment. Then let's make Friday count. As Nolan turned to leave, Monica called after him. What about your son? Jake, right? How will this affect him? Nolan paused at the door. Jake's smarter than both his parents. He's already figured out most of it. I'll tell him tonight, man to man. He's lucky to have you. Monica said softly. No, Nolan corrected her. I'm lucky to have him. Only good thing to come out of this mess. That evening, Nolan took Jake to their favorite burger place outside of town. The restaurant was nothing special: vinyl booths, paper placemats, waitresses who called everyone honey, but they'd been coming here for father-son dinners since Jake was old enough to hold a hamburger. Jake studied the menu despite knowing it by heart. Something's up. You only bring me here when there's big news. Nolan set down his own menu. That obvious. Last time we came was when Grandpa died. Time before that was when you were expanding the business. Jake met his father's eyes. So what is it? Your mother and I are getting divorced. Jake's expression didn't change. He nodded slowly, absorbing the information. Because of her and Mr. Caldwell. The question hit Nolan like a physical weight. You knew. I saw them once. At the mall in Grand Rapids. They didn't see me. Jake shredded his paper napkin methodically. I was going to tell you, but then I thought maybe you already knew and were just, I don't know, dealing with it in your own way. I found out last week. Been making arrangements since then. What kind of arrangements? Nolan considered how much to share with his son. Jake wasn't a child, but he was still 17. Still learning what kind of man he wanted to become. Legal arrangements. Financial arrangements. Making sure we're protected. Jake nodded again. Good. She doesn't deserve anything. Jake. No, Dad. Jake's voice hardened. Don't defend her. Not to me. She broke our family. She lied to both of us. Nolan reached across the table, gripping his son's forearm. I'm not defending her, but I don't want hatred eating you up inside. That's a poison you don't need. What about you? Are you just over it? No, I'm angry. Nolan released Jake's arm. But I believe in consequences, not revenge. There's a difference. Jake didn't look convinced, but he nodded. So what happens now? Friday morning, I serve her with divorce papers. She'll move out immediately. All her things will already be packed. You and I stay in the house. Life goes on. Just like that. Just like that. Nolan forced a small smile. It'll be rough for a while. People will talk. But we'll get through it. Together, Jake said. Together, Nolan agreed. They ate their burgers and talked about safer topics: Jake's college applications, the upcoming baseball championship, Tyrell's new girlfriend. But beneath the normal conversation ran an undercurrent of shared pain and resolve. By the time they drove home, a new understanding existed between them. They were a unit now, father and son against the world. The next day, Nolan met with his lawyer, Carol Weston, to finalize the divorce filing. She'd been his business attorney for years, a sharp-minded woman who'd survived her own divorce with both her assets and dignity intact. The evidence is solid, she said, reviewing the security footage stills. Michigan's a no-fault state, but infidelity can impact spousal support determinations, especially with this kind of documentation. I don't care about denying her support, Nolan replied. I care about protecting what's mine. The business, the house, Jake's college fund. All separate property or jointly owned with clear documentation of your contributions. Carol nodded approvingly. You've always been meticulous with your finances, Nolan. It's paying off now. What about Jake? He's 17, almost 18, correct? He can choose where he lives. Given the evidence, I don't anticipate any judge awarding Renee primary custody, even if she wanted it. She won't, Nolan said with certainty. Renee's never been the maternal type. Jake was my project from day one. Carol made a note. That works in our favor. Now, about the timing. You're sure you want to move this quickly? Most clients take time to consider reconciliation. No, reconciliation. Nolan's tone left no room for discussion. File tomorrow, serve Friday morning. And you've arranged for her belongings? Already packed. Boxes labeled. Ready to load into her car. Carol raised an eyebrow. You work quickly. I've had practice. 15 years of marriage teaches you a lot about efficiency. Fair enough. Carol closed her folder. One last thing, are you prepared for her reaction? In my experience, the unfaithful spouse often responds with outrage when they realize they've lost control of the narrative. Nolan stood, straightening his jacket. Let her rage. The time for talking passed when she brought another man into our bed. That night, Nolan worked late in the garage, the familiar rhythm of sanding would soothing his churning thoughts. The door opened behind him, and Renee stepped inside, carrying a glass of wine. You've been out here for hours, she said, leaning against his workbench. Everything okay? Nolan continued sanding, not looking up. Fine, just finishing this cabinet door for the Peterson project. I was thinking, Renee swirled her wine, maybe we should plan a trip. Just the two of us. It's been a while since we got away together. Nolan finally looked at her, studying the woman he'd once promised to love forever. She was still beautiful auburn hair, falling in soft waves around her face, green eyes that had once made his heart race. Now he felt nothing but a cold, hollow space where love had lived. Sure, he said, returning to his work. When were you thinking? Maybe next month? I could look at some options. She stepped closer, her perfume mingling with the scent of sawdust. We could use some time to reconnect. The irony of her suggestion, just days after he'd watched her kiss another man in their home, was almost enough to break his composure. Instead, he nodded. Sounds nice. Let's talk about it after I finish this project. Renee touched his shoulder, fingers lingering. Don't work too late. It's supposed to be our anniversary week. As she left, Nolan set down his sandpaper and took a deep breath. The countdown had begun. Less than 48 hours until everything changed. Monica called on Thursday afternoon. Everything's ready on my end, she said without preamble. Lawyers filed the papers. Derek's clothes are packed. I've moved all my personal assets to new accounts. Good. Nolan wedged the phone between his ear and shoulder as he reviewed building plans. Any change of heart? None whatsoever. Her voice was firm, though I did have an unexpected visitor this morning. Who? Helena Wilson, Renee's best friend. Nolan frowned. Helena had been Renee's confidant for years, a divorcee who owned a local real estate agency. They'd never been close, but Helena had always been polite to him at social gatherings. What did she want? To warn me. Monica's voice dropped lower. Apparently, she's known about the affair for months. Renee's been confiding in her. But now Helena feels guilty or threatened. She's worried about her own reputation when this all blows up. How much does she know? About the affair? Everything. About her plans? Nothing specific. But she offered to help me get even with Derek. Said she has information about his business dealings that could be useful. Nolan set down his pencil. What kind of information? Financial irregularities at the dealership. Fudged credit applications. Falsified income verification for loans. Helena's brother works in banking apparently. He's seen some questionable paperwork come through. That could destroy his business. Exactly. Monica paused. I told her I'd think about it. Should I have said no? Nolan considered the implications. No, you did the right thing. We might need her later. For now, keep her talking, but don't commit to anything. What if she warns Renee? She won't. Helena's protecting herself now. Besides, tomorrow morning it'll be too late for warnings. After hanging up, Nolan mulled over this new development. Helena had always struck him as self-serving, climbing the social ladder one rung at a time. If she was offering to turn on Renee, she must sense which way the wind was blowing. That evening, Nolan prepared dinner, as usual: grilled chicken, roasted potatoes, green beans. Jake joined him in the kitchen, setting the table without being asked. Last normal night, Jake muttered, arranging forks beside plates. There'll be more normal nights, Nolan promised. Different, but normal. Renee arrived home just as Nolan was serving, her cheeks flushed and eyes bright. Sorry I'm late. Client meeting ran over. Nolan nodded, passing her a plate. How'd it go? Great. They're ready to list next week. Renee chatted animatedly about the property, the potential buyers, the expected bidding war. All lies, Nolan knew, but he nodded in all the right places. After dinner, Renee disappeared upstairs to call Helena, and Jake helped Nolan clean up. How can you stand it? Jake asked, loading the dishwasher. Listening to her lie like that. Practice, Nolan replied simply. And knowing it ends tomorrow. Jake glanced toward the stairs. What if she freaks out? Makes a scene. She probably will. That's why I want you out of the house in the morning. Go to school early, meet up with friends. No way. Jake shook his head firmly. I'm staying. This affects me too. Nolan studied his son's determined expression. The boy had his mother's green eyes, but Nolan's stubborn jawline. Okay, but you stay upstairs until I call you down. Deal. Deal. Later, as Renee planned their fictitious romantic getaway, scrolling through resort websites in bed beside him, Nolan found himself almost admiring her commitment to the charade. She'd created an entire alternate reality where their marriage wasn't in shambles, where tomorrow wasn't doomsday. This one has a private beach, she pointed at the screen. What do you think? Looks nice, he said, turning a page in his book without registering the words. You're not even looking. She nudged his arm playfully. Come on, this is important. When was the last time we had a real vacation? The cabin last year. Renee made a face. That wasn't a vacation. It rained the whole time, and the Wi-Fi was terrible. I remember. Nolan marked his page and set the book aside. Renee, are you happy? The question caught her off guard. She blinked, her smile faltering slightly. What? Of course I am. Why would you ask that? Just wondering. He studied her face, searching for any hint of guilt or regret. You seem different lately. Excited about something. I'm excited about us, she said, closing her laptop. About reconnecting. I know things have been distant between us. That's why this trip is important. Nolan nodded, wondering if she actually believed her own lies or if this was all calculated misdirection. Either way, the performance was impressive. Get some sleep, he said, turning off his lamp. Big day tomorrow. As Renee settled beside him, Nolan stared at the ceiling, mentally reviewing his checklist for the morning. Everything was in place. The lawyer, the packed boxes, the new locks, the bank accounts. All the dominoes arranged with precision, waiting for the first push. Nolan woke at 5, as he had every day for the past 15 years. The routine was comforting coffee brewing, toast in the toaster, work clothes laid out the night before. Except today, he put on a dress shirt and slacks instead of his usual work gear. Renee stumbled into the kitchen at 7, wrapped in her robe. "You dressed up, meeting with clients?" "Something like that." Nolan sipped his coffee, checking his watch. The courier would arrive at 8:15 with the divorce papers. Monica would be delivering Derek's belongings to their front porch at 8:30. Everything timed to perfection. "I might go shopping today," Renee said, pouring herself coffee. That resort had a dress code for dinner. "I could use something new." Nolan nodded, letting her spin her fantasy for the last time. "Renee, I need to show you something in the garage." "Now?" "I'm not even dressed." "It won't take long." Curiosity overcame her reluctance, and she followed him through the door connecting the kitchen to the garage. There, neatly stacked and labeled, were 15 boxes containing her clothes, shoes, jewelry, and personal items. Renee stopped short. "What is this?" "Your things," Nolan said simply. "Packed and ready to go." "I don't understand." Her voice rose slightly. "Are we renovating?" "Moving." "You're moving." Nolan met her confused gaze. "I filed for divorce yesterday. The papers will be here in about 20 minutes. Renee's coffee mug slipped from her fingers, shattering on the concrete floor. "What?" "Nolan, this isn't funny. It's not meant to be." He stepped carefully around the broken ceramic and coffee puddle. "I know about Derek. I have proof date, time, and location, including our bedroom." The color drained from Renee's face. "Nolan, I can explain." "Don't bother. I'm not interested in explanations or apologies. The marriage is over. These boxes contain everything that belongs to you. Your car keys are on top of that box." He pointed to the nearest stack. "You have until noon to load your car and leave." Renee's shock gave way to anger. "You can't just throw me out. This is my home, too." "Actually, I can. The house is in my name. You insisted on that arrangement when we bought it, if you recall. Something about protecting your credit score." Nolan's voice remained calm, almost conversational. "As for your personal belongings, I've been more than fair. Everything you came into this marriage with, and everything you acquired during it is in these boxes." "This is insane." Renee's voice rose to a shout. "You can't make these decisions without talking to me. The way you discussed sleeping with Derek in our bed before doing it." Nolan raised an eyebrow. Or the way you discussed spending our money on clothes to impress him. Or using our home when you thought Jake and I wouldn't be around. It wasn't like that. Save it, Renee." Nolan checked his watch again. "The courier will be here soon. You might want to get dressed before signing for legal documents." "I won't sign anything." "You can't make me." "You don't have to sign them to be served. And fighting this will only drain whatever money you have left. I have video evidence, witness statements, and financial records. This divorce is happening whether you cooperate or not." Renee's eyes narrowed. "Is this about money? Fine. I'll give you the commission for my next 3 sales. We can work this out." "This isn't about money." Nolan's voice finally hardened. "This is about trust, respect, family, all the things you threw away for quick thrills with a car salesman." The doorbell rang, right on schedule. Nolan turned toward the house. "That'll be the courier. Jake's upstairs if you want to say goodbye, though I doubt he's interested in hearing from you right now." "Jake knows." Renee's voice cracked. "You told our son? He figured it out on his own. Kids are perceptive that way." Nolan left her standing among the boxes of her dismantled life and answered the front door. The courier, a young man in a company polo, held out a clipboard. "Delivery for Renee Mercer. She'll be right out." Renee appeared moments later, hastily dressed in yesterday's clothes, her face a mask of fury and disbelief. She snatched the envelope from the courier without signing, tearing it open as the young man beat a hasty retreat. "This is ridiculous," she muttered, scanning the legal document. "No-fault divorce, division of assets. No spousal support. What is this?" She jabbed at a paragraph. "I'm entitled to half of everything." "Read the prenuptial agreement section," Nolan suggested. "The one you signed 15 years ago, stating that the business remains my separate property in case of divorce. As for the rest, I've documented every contribution I've made to our joint assets. The house was purchased primarily with my inheritance from my father. Your car was a gift from me, which I'm allowing you to keep. Seems more than fair. I'll fight this, Renee threatened, waving the papers. I'll get a lawyer. I'll take you for everything. You're welcome to try. Nolan gestured toward the street, where commotion was unfolding. But you might want to check on your boyfriend first. 3 houses down, Monica Caldwell stood on Nolan's front lawn, overseeing as Derek's belongings were unceremoniously dumped next to the mailbox. Derek himself stood in the street, gesticulating wildly, his face contorted with rage. "What's happening?" Renee asked, momentarily distracted from her own crisis. Monica filed for divorce too. Interesting timing, isn't it? Renee's eyes widened as understanding dawned. You planned this. Both of you. Justice comes in many forms. Nolan stepped aside as Renee rushed past him, running toward the scene. Jake appeared at the top of the stairs, watching his mother flee. Is it done? Phase 1, Nolan confirmed. Want to help me change the locks? Jake descended the stairs, a toolbox already in hand. Way ahead of you, Dad. Together, they replaced the deadbolts on every exterior door while the neighborhood drama unfolded on their front lawn. Derek Caldwell, discovering his carefully constructed double life imploding in real time, alternated between begging Monica for another chance and demanding Renee explain what was happening. Your wife knows everything, Monica announced loud enough for the gathering neighbors to hear. And so does Nolan. Game over, Derek. Renee tried to pull Derek aside for a private conversation, but he shrugged her off. Not now, Renee. I need to talk to my wife. But Derek, I've been kicked out. Where am I supposed to go? Derek barely spared her a glance. That's not my problem right now. The brutal dismissal hit Renee visibly. She stood frozen, watching as the man she'd risked everything for prioritized saving his own marriage over helping her. The irony wasn't lost on the neighbors, who whispered behind hands and pretended not to stare. Inside, Jake peered through the living room curtains. Mom looks like she's going to cry. Probably will, Nolan replied, testing the new front door lock. Secure here. Let's do the back. Aren't you going to watch? Nothing to see. Nolan nodded toward the door. Back lock. As they worked on the rear entrance, the doorbell rang insistently. Nolan nodded to Jake. I'll finish here. Can you see who that is? Jake returned moments later. It's Helena Wilson. Says she needs to talk to you urgently. Nolan tightened the last screw. Show her in. Helena burst into the kitchen, designer handbag clutched like a shield. Nolan, what is happening? The whole neighborhood is watching Derek and Renee have a meltdown on your lawn. Divorce proceedings, Nolan said calmly, putting away his tools. Coffee. No, I don't want coffee. Helena's perfectly highlighted hair swung as she paced. This is a disaster. Did you know about them? Why didn't you tell me? Why would I? Nolan leaned against the counter. You're Renee's friend, not mine. Helena stopped pacing. I am everyone's friend. Or I was. She glanced out the window toward the continuing spectacle. This is going to be a nightmare for everyone involved. Not for me. Nolan crossed his arms. I've made my peace with it. Well, I haven't. Helena lowered her voice, though only Jake was present to overhear. Nolan, I need to tell you something. I've known about them for a while. Monica mentioned that. Helena's perfectly arched eyebrows shot up. You've talked to Monica? When? Recently. Nolan studied her anxious expression. She said you offer information about Derek's business. Something that could hurt him. I did, and I meant it. Helena perched on a kitchen stool, suddenly all business. Derek's been falsifying loan applications at the dealership, getting people approved who shouldn't be, inflating income numbers, all of it. My brother works at First National. He's seen the paperwork. And you're telling me this because Renee used me. Helena's voice hardened, made me her confidant, her alibi, her accomplice. Put my reputation at risk. And for what? For a man who just publicly humiliated her. Jake, who had been quietly observing from the doorway, stepped forward. You want revenge? Helena looked startled, as if just noticing him. I want justice. And I think your father does too. Nolan exchanged a look with Jake. You have actual evidence of these financial irregularities? My brother does. Bank statements, loan applications with discrepancies, credit reports that don't match the paperwork Derek submitted. Enough to trigger an audit at minimum, criminal charges at worst. Nolan nodded slowly. And you're willing to help Monica access this information? I already offered. She seemed hesitant. She was being cautious. Nolan straightened. Jake, can you give us a minute? Jake looked like he wanted to argue, but nodded. I'll go check on the chaos outside. When they were alone, Nolan faced Helena directly. Why should I trust you? You've been covering for my wife's affair for months. Because I made a mistake. I want to fix it. Helena met his gaze. And because Derek Caldwell deserves to lose everything, just like he made others lose everything. What do you mean? Helena hesitated, then reached into her bag for her phone. My cousin applied for financing at Caldwell Motors last year. Good job, decent credit, should have been approved. Derek denied him, said his credit wasn't strong enough. She pulled up a text message. 2 weeks later, the same car was sold to another customer who Derek personally vouched for, a customer with worse credit but a connection to Derek. That's unethical, but hardly criminal. It gets worse. Helena scrolled to another message. My cousin complained to the bank directly. They checked his application and found income figures that didn't match what he'd submitted. Someone at the dealership had lowered them to make him look less qualified. Why would Derek do that? To save the deal for his friend, who paid cash under the table as a thank you. My brother confirmed it off the record, of course. He's seen multiple cases like this. Nolan considered the implications. If Helena was telling the truth, Derek hadn't just betrayed his wife, he'd systematically abused his position, manipulating finances to benefit himself and his cronies at the expense of honest customers. What exactly are you proposing? Helena's smile was cold. An anonymous tip to the banking commission. Copies of documentation sent to Derek's investors, the ones who would be liable if this blew up. One email could start an investigation that would bring down his entire operation. And that email would come from, not me, not you, not even Monica. Helena leaned forward. But perhaps from Renee. She had access to his phone, his email. She knows things. It would be poetic, don't you think? The mistress bringing down the cheater's empire. Nolan shook his head. Renee would never do that. She doesn't have to know she's doing it. Helena's voice dropped to a whisper. I have her passwords. She used my computer often enough to leave traces. One email, sent from her account to the right people, with the right documentation attached. The scheme was elegant in its simplicity and devastating in its potential impact. Nolan understood why Helena had approached Monica, first women scorned, seeking alliance against a common enemy. But something about Helena's eagerness made him cautious. What's your angle in this, Helena? Really? She didn't flinch from the direct question. Protection. When the scandal breaks wide open, I want to be on the right side of it. And she hesitated. Derek cost my family money. Real money. My cousin wasn't the only one who got screwed over. So it's personal, isn't all of this? Before Nolan could respond, the front door slammed open. Jake appeared in the kitchen doorway, eyes wide. Dad, you need to come now. Derek's losing it. Nolan followed his son to the front porch, Helena close behind. The scene had escalated dramatically. Derek, red-faced and shouting, stood in the middle of the street. Monica had retreated to her car, but remained parked at the curb. Renee hovered nearby, tears streaming down her face. You think you can just throw me away? Derek bellowed at Monica. After everything I've done for you? That bakery wouldn't exist without my money. Your money. Monica's voice carried clearly across the lawn. My grandfather's inheritance built that bakery. Your contribution was sleeping with my friends behind my back. Neighbors had abandoned all pretense of not watching. Tom Bradford stood on his front lawn in a bathrobe, coffee cup in hand. The Johnsons paused while loading their kids into a minivan. Even Mrs. Halston, 82 and hard of hearing, had emerged to witness the spectacle. This town would be nothing without me. Derek stabbed a finger in the air. I employ half the people here. I sponsor every event. I made this place, and now you're unmaking it. Nolan commented as he descended his front steps. Derek whirled to face him. This is your fault. You and your security cameras and your detective work. You couldn't just look the other way like a normal husband. Normal husbands don't allow other men to sleep with their wives. Nolan replied evenly. Normal husbands protect what's theirs. Protect. Derek sneered. Is that what you call this circus? This humiliation? I call it consequences. Nolan stepped closer, voice low but carrying. Actions have them, Derek. Always. You son of a. Derek lunged forward, fist raised, but Nolan sidestepped easily. Derek stumbled, off balance, as Tyrell's truck screeched to a halt at the curb. Everything okay here? Tyrell called, emerging from the driver's side, his imposing frame enough to make Derek reconsider his approach. Fine, Nolan replied, not taking his eyes off Derek. Mr. Caldwell was just leaving. Weren't you, Derek? Derek looked from Nolan to Tyrell, then to the gathered neighbors. Whatever calculation ran through his mind, he seemed to recognize the battle was lost for now. This isn't over, he muttered, backing toward his car. Actually, it is. Monica called from her vehicle. Check your email. My lawyer copied your business partners on the divorce filing, including the evidence of your affairs. Plural. Derek froze. You didn't. I did. Monica started her engine. Have a nice life, Derek. What's left of it? As Monica drove away, Derek fumbled for his phone, face paling as he scrolled through messages. Without another word to anyone, not even Renee, he jumped in his car and sped off, tires squealing. Renee stood alone on the sidewalk, abandoned by her lover and evicted by her husband, the center of attention for all the wrong reasons. She turned toward Nolan, mascara streaking her cheeks. Where am I supposed to go? For a moment, Nolan felt a flicker of pity. 15 years. A child together. A life built and now dismantled. But the moment passed quickly as he remembered the security footage, the lies, the betrayal. That's not my concern anymore, he said quietly. Your things are packed. Take them and leave. Nolan, please, no. The single word carried the weight of finality. We're done, Renee. Jake stepped forward, standing shoulder to shoulder with his father. You should go, Mom. Nobody wants you here. The harshness from her son seemed to hit Renee harder than anything else. She stared at Jake, mouth opening and closing without sound, before turning and walking slowly back toward the house. Tyrell approached, keeping his voice low. Hell of a morning. You okay? Getting there. Nolan clasped his friend's shoulder. Thanks for coming. Always got your back. Tyrell nodded toward the curious neighbors. Want me to help clear this crowd? No need. Show's over anyway. Helena, who had watched the confrontation from a porch, descended to join them. Not quite over. The Derek Caldwell saga is just beginning. What do you mean? Jake asked. Helena smiled thinly. Let's just say his business partners will have some very interesting reading material today. Anonymous tips have a way of causing immediate action when financial irregularities are involved. Nolan raised an eyebrow. You didn't wait for my approval. Time is of the essence in these matters. Helena shrugged unapologetically. Besides, you were busy managing the street theater. Tyrell looked between them. What am I missing? I'll explain later, Nolan promised. For now, let's focus on getting Renee's things loaded and her out of our house. The next few hours passed in tense efficiency. Renee, subdued and shell-shocked, moved her boxes to her car and a small U-Haul trailer Helena arranged. She made one attempt to speak privately with Jake, but he refused, shutting his bedroom door in her face at BY noon. The driveway was empty of her belongings, and Renee stood at the front door for the last time. Can I at least have some time to find a place? A few days on the couch. Her voice had lost its earlier fight, replaced by quiet desperation. No. Nolan held the door open, an unspoken instruction to leave. Helena's offered you her guest room until you sort things out. Renee looked past him to where Jake stood at the bottom of the stairs. Jake, baby, I'm sorry. This isn't what I wanted. Yes, it was. Jake's voice was flat. You just wanted to keep both Dad at home, taking care of things while you had fun with Mr. Caldwell. You don't get to have it both ways. That's not fair. Neither is cheating on your family. Jake turned and walked away, disappearing into the kitchen. Renee's shoulders slumped in defeat. He'll never forgive me, will he? Probably not, Nolan agreed. But that's between you and him now. He closed the door on her face, sliding the new deadbolt into place with a satisfying click. Through the window, He watched Renee slowly walk to her car and drive away, following Helena's Lexus out of their cul-de-sac and out of their lives. 5 months later, Nolan hosted the neighborhood Labor Day barbecue. The summer had brought monumental changes to Maple Street. Derek Caldwell's dealership had collapsed under regulatory investigation, with criminal charges pending for financial fraud. He'd fled town ahead of the indictments, last seen in Arizona, trying to rebuild his life under increasingly desperate circumstances. Renee had moved to Grand Rapids, taking a position with a larger real estate firm. She'd made several attempts to reconnect with Jake, who remained polite but distant. The divorce had finalized quickly, leaving Nolan with the house and business intact, exactly as he'd planned. That Monica's Bakery had expanded to a second location in the next town over. She'd thrived in the aftermath of her divorce, channeling her energy into building her business rather than looking for new romance. Tyrell manned the grill this time, freeing Nolan to mingle with his neighbors. The whispers and sidelong glances of the early summer had faded, replaced by respectful nods and genuine conversations. "Another beer?" Tom Bradford offered, extending a cold bottle. "Thanks." Nolan accepted gratefully. "How's Melissa doing at college?" "Loving it. Calls her mother every day with new crises." Tom chuckled fondly. "Kids, right?" "Right." Nolan spotted Jake across the yard, surrounded by teammates, laughing at something. The past months had aged his son in subtle ways, a new seriousness behind his eyes, a more measured approach to decisions. But there was laughter too, and plans for the future. They were healing, slowly but surely. Monica arrived carrying a tray of pastries, her new assistant helping with additional desserts. She made her way to Nolan's side after setting up her contribution. "Successful turnout," she observed, surveying the crowded yard. "Better than I expected." Nolan clinked his bottle against her glass of lemonade. "How's business?" "Booming. The second location is already turning a profit." Monica smiled, more relaxed than he'd ever seen her. "Heard from Helena today. Apparently Derek's trying to cut a deal with prosecutors. Too late for that. His investors won't settle for anything less than full restitution, which he can't possibly provide." Monica's satisfaction was evident. "Karma's a fascinating force, isn't it?" Nolan nodded, watching Jake approach with a plate of food. "That it is." Jake joined them, balancing a burger piled high with toppings. "Coach says I have a good shot at a scholarship to Michigan State." "That's fantastic," Monica said warmly. "Their engineering program is supposed to be excellent." "That's what Dad says too." Jake grinned at his father. "Though he's biased." "Completely," Nolan agreed, returning the smile. "Doesn't mean I'm wrong." As afternoon faded into evening, lawn chairs formed casual circles around scattered tables. Stories and laughter flowed as freely as the drinks. Nolan found himself at the center of one such gathering, surrounded by neighbors who'd witnessed his worst day and now shared in his recovery. To new beginnings, Tyrell proposed, raising his bottle in a toast. "New beginnings," the group echoed. Across the yard, Monica caught Nolan's eye and raised her glass in silent acknowledgement. There was no romantic intent in the gesture. Both were too raw for that, just recognition of shared experience and mutual respect. Jake dropped in a chair beside his father. "Mom called again today. Wants to meet for lunch next weekend." "Going to go?" Jake shrugged. "Maybe. Not sure what there is to say anymore." "Your choice." Nolan rested a hand briefly on his son's shoulder. "Whatever you decide, I've got your back." "I know, Dad." Jake's smile was small but genuine. "That's the one thing I never doubted." As darkness fell and neighbors began gathering their belongings to head home, Nolan stood in his driveway, saying goodbyes. The house behind him was quieter now, with one less person filling its rooms. But it was no longer filled with lies and betrayal either. He'd lost a wife, but saved himself and his relationship with his son. The business continued to thrive, expansion plans moving forward. Most importantly, he'd faced destruction and emerged stronger, not broken. Tyrell approached as the last guest departed. "Need help cleaning up?" "Nah, Jake and I have it covered." Nolan surveyed the remnants of the gathering. "Thanks for coming. Meant a lot. Wouldn't miss it." Tyrell studied his friend's face. "You good?" "Really good." Nolan considered the question, looking back at the house where Jake was already gathering trash bags. In the months since discovering Renee's betrayal, he'd experienced rage, grief, vindication, and finally, a strange peace. The woman he'd loved had been gone long before he'd packed her things. The life he planned had derailed, but found a new track. "Yeah," he said finally. "I'm good. Glad to hear it." Tyrell clapped him on the back. "Some men never recover from what you went through. They let it poison everything. Not my style." Nolan picked up an abandoned plate from the driveway. "Life's too short for that kind of bitterness." As Tyrell drove away and Nolan turned back toward his home, on his terms he realized the truth in his own words. The revenge had been swift and complete, the consequences devastating for those who had betrayed him. But unlike Renee and Derek, forever defined by their deception, Nolan had already moved beyond it. He joined Jake in the yard, gathering empty bottles and discarded napkins in comfortable silence. Together, they restored order to their domain as the maple trees cast long shadows across the lawn, marking the end of summer and the beginning of whatever came next.